Welcome to Success at Scale, the podcast that covers business stories from experienced entrepreneurs and startup founders on how to translate business ideas into business results. I'm your host, Gregg Stein, and today we're going to talk with Brian Rothschild, one of my favorite people in the world, who is also the co-founder and executive director at the John Lennon Educational Tour Bus. Brian created the Lennon Bus with Yoko Ono Lennon and has expanded the project around the world, everywhere, with corporate sponsors, including companies like Apple, Canon, Montblanc, Gibson Guitar, Yamaha, Adobe, Juniper Networks, OWC, and so many more. Today, Lennon Bus Europe and Lennon Bus US, because it's everywhere, provide young people with hands-on opportunities to create digital media projects, including music, videos, short films, performances, documentaries, live stream productions, and all sorts of other ideas reflective of their ideas and concerns. All of this is taking the John Lennon mission forward. It is magical. And I can't wait to get into this with you, Brian. Thank you so much for being here today. Let's talk about you and your background, how you got here. Welcome.
Yep. Yeah. It's such a pleasure to be here with you, Gregg, and having the opportunity to talk about the Lennon Bus has been my passion for 25 plus years. Really, really excited to look ahead at what we can do. Kicking off in January 2023 at the Grammys. It's been a long road, like for everybody. It's been an incredibly, long and difficult road coming through, COVID and everything. And as a program that is really dedicated to providing young people with free opportunities, we've gone to, really hundreds and hundreds of schools. We've impacted thousands and thousands of kids. Typically 250,000 young people a year are impacted and coming through the bus and involved with our programs across the US and Europe, like you said. So yeah, I'm excited to get into it with you today.
All right. So let's go back to the beginning of you and your background in music and your love for music and passion for everything that you're involved in now. Tell us about you and your background.
Yeah. So, I guess it all goes back in some ways to my mother, who was a classical pianist. She was a child prodigy. Wow. She grew up in New York City, and my grandmother, her mother, really and put her into a music school on the Upper West Side in Manhattan because she just thought it would be a good enrichment. But she was particularly talented at it. Played Town Hall when she was 8 and Carnegie Hall when she was 10, and spent her youth concertizing and ended up going to the High School of Music and Art. And I started playing the piano myself when I was, 4 or 5 years old. But, my mom was also a music educator herself. She taught piano lessons. She taught in public schools. And I think that was certainly really, really impactful for me. And so pretty early on, I began writing my own songs and creating my own music. I had lots of jobs as a kid. I was the accompanist for a lot of different musical groups, a lot of children's music groups. In high school, one of my first jobs was first as the accompanist for a youth program that was a summer program in downtown Hartford, Connecticut. That was a church group with Center City churches in Hartford. And it was kids who were coming every morning for free breakfast and music. And they did productions every year over the course of the summer. And so I think I was 15 and 16 when I first started doing that. And eventually had the bug to write my own musical. So I think when I was 17, they produced my first musical that I was the music director for, called All That's Gold. And I think it was maybe about 12 or 14 songs. and it was all kids that were, from I guess 5 to maybe about 12 or 13 years old. And so I don't know. Along the way, I kind of forgot about that, and then finding myself, involved in music education and creating a program that was, for young people and specifically for a lot of kids who were from underserved communities that were coming from tough backgrounds. I mean, I guess that was something that was in my blood, early on. I didn't really make that connection until later. But yeah, then I went to I went to Hampshire College. They had an amazing electronic studio at that point in time, and as an undergraduate, you were able to get into that studio right away. So I kind of got certified to be able to use that probably in my first semester, and met a lot of other people in that context who were into creating electronic music. Those were really my, my early beginnings. From there, I started writing music for TV commercials and doing some jingles and stuff like that. And then I met David Sonnenberg, who's a really legendary music manager, and we started working together. He really liked what I was doing. He got me signed to Columbia Records with a pretty weird concept that I called I Am Siam. Got Larry Fast, who was named really keyboard player of the year many times. He was one of the right-hand people to Peter Gabriel, who was one of my idols back then. I loved, his sound and his songs and everything like that. So I produced a record with Larry that, I got to really experience being in the studio. We produced it at the House of Music in West Orange, New Jersey, where Kool and the Gang did all their music. And I got a lot of cool people to play on that record. From there, I had my trials and tribulations with the music business and the music industry. Bartended when my daughter was born, paying the bills. I don't want to just sugarcoat everything. It's tough to do it all. But I kept working with David in a lot of different ways, and he, enlisted me to get involved with his management company, and that quickly, grew into the realization that there was a lot of, unsolicited music that was getting sent to us from around the world, and that sort of prompted the idea of wanting to provide young, really songwriters of all ages with some access that they didn't have, right? Because it's so it's really so dependent on connections for most of the world. So I don't know. We liked the idea of creating a songwriting contest. Had the opportunity to pitch that idea initially to Yoko, who agreed that it was something that was really needed. That having access, finding some alternative ways to give songwriters access to the business was important. And that was really how I first came to meet her. And, in getting that up on its feet, trying to figure out ways to market it, how to make it famous. I had come up with the idea of this mobile studio. And, initially that was in 1997. We launched the first version of it in 1998 with a big event in New York City. And I was quickly really smitten with the idea of keeping it alive, because initially it was meant to just be a promotion for the John Lennon Songwriting Contest. It was meant to be a spring promotion. We put this studio together, not really knowing what I was doing. I had studios in my house for years. I was always into gear and technology and all of that. But, on a moving vehicle, it's some unique challenges that had to be met.
So rewind. You started with this songwriting contest, right? And you have this incredible background of music, of education, of kind of, giving back in the community and all of this incredible passion. You leverage this together. You go and you present this idea to Yoko, and then that kind of gives birth to the bus. Did I get that right?
Yeah, you really did, because I didn't start out trying to create what I call the world's greatest nonprofit studios in the world. I didn't
Right.
start out with that as the idea. I was trying to find a way to do something that was unique and in keeping with the legacy of John Lennon. And so, somebody actually had brought me, we were looking at different media plans and different ideas for promoting and advertising the John Lennon Songwriting Contest, which is still going on. We're like in our 26th year of it now. There's over $300,000 in cash awards and prizes every year. We have some amazing, real famous songwriters and artists and business leaders and producers who help us with the judging of that. But yeah, the original idea for the bus was as a marketing tool to promote the contest. And the first buses said John Lennon Songwriting Contest. And the idea was to travel the US promoting the contest, get as much media attention that we could, go on, a lot of live morning shows with the bus. But our very first was on Good Morning America in New York City. That was day one of the bus. It had driven up from Florida, where it was built. Right, I had been working with Maxell Corporation and Yamaha Corporation of America to get that first bus kitted out, and drove it up. They drove it up from Florida and sort of delivered it to me in front of our office on the Upper West Side in Manhattan at like 3:00 in the morning. And that was the first time that I actually saw it put together, and it looked amazing. It didn't all work correctly, but it looked amazing.
Right. Perfect for TV. Perfect for TV.
Yeah. Yeah. And we had Wyclef Jean from the Fugees and Joan Osborne, the amazing singer, slated to appear on GMA, Good Morning America, with us that first morning. And almost kind of as an afterthought, if I'm being honest, I thought, let's put some kids from New York City public schools on board with these two great artists. And so we had 4 or 5, or I think it was 4 or 5 kids that were on board with them. And in the course of the 2 hours of that show, they really produced the first Lennon Bus session, which was creating an original song in a very short amount of time. And so during that 2 hours of that show, they kept cutting back into the bus to show the progress of the song. And then they revealed this first creation at in the last few minutes of that GMA. And
I mean, you're really fusing like all these different worlds together, right? You're bringing celebrity with TV, with the tour bus, with education, with up and coming talent. I mean, you got it all going on. It's really a magical experience. I mean, having been on the tour bus myself, I mean, and looking at you on this bus here, I mean, it really is kind of a magical experience in my view,
Well, thank you. Yeah. I mean, look, with John Lennon's name on it and with Yoko's support, it had to be, and it has to be something that is magical, that's inspiring, that's worthy of his legacy and their legacy. And, having the opportunity to share that with young people of all ages, with teachers, with business leaders, it's been an honor. It really has been. It's something that once I was smitten with it, I couldn't imagine letting it go, because originally it was meant to be a short term, maybe a springtime of 1998, I guess, promotion. And then the idea was that it was going to go back to Florida and be disassembled, and that was it. But that first day on Good Morning America was very successful, and we got a lot of positive responses, calls, and inquiries from the mayor of Boston and the city of Los Angeles, and scores of teachers and school districts that saw it and wanted to know how they could get it. And that's when I was like, maybe this is something that really needs to have a longer life. And
well,
that began.
You hit the nail on the head though when you said imagine, right? And the movement that you've created. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but you did this human peace sign that's pretty mind blowing not that long ago.
Yeah, I mean, that came much later. We wanted to do something that could impact a whole school or a whole community.
Yeah.
And it was really Jamie Walden was on our team who, kept pushing to do these peace signs and, going to schools, which has really been the bread and butter of the bus, right? There's a lot of prep work that goes into making successful Lennon Bus stops. And it takes, a lot of coordination with people that are on the ground. So I always loved the idea of doing the big human peace signs, but I was also concerned that it was going to be too taxing, for the schools, for the administrations and whatever. But once we put that out there as kind of one of the options on our menu of what we could do if we came to your community, I mean, a lot of people just really loved the idea of it and wanted to support it. So we've done them small with 50 students, and we've done them huge with thousands and thousands of people in Central Park in New York City, with Yoko and a lot of other artists joining us as well, and everything in between. I mean, in Florida, we did a big one that was something over 3,000 people. That was just all, one high school, with the superintendent of schools at that time, really supporting it and joining us for it. So it's a way of, it's really as a way of getting people to think about and talk about and spread peace. They've been extremely impactful. That connection between peace and business, yes. It seems like it would be, how does that even connect? Right. And I guess from a business perspective, when I started it, and it's, Yoko's made some very generous contributions for sure, but the idea was always to have it be something that, the community at large was going to help support, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's taken the support of lots of companies like you've mentioned already. And, Other World Computing is another one that has been involved for a number of years now as well. But I didn't talk about peace early on, in my initial pitches going out into the world to talk about support for the Lennon Bus.
Why not? Why not? Why didn't that come up earlier?
Yeah, because I felt like, and I know it's, I just think that, for a lot of people, it was about, that was like a hippie thing, right? Like that was something that seemed like, that's unrealistic. It's, it didn't seem modern, 25 years ago. It seemed like a throwback. And I was worried about, kind of being marginalized, and I wanted to focus on the technology.
So you really thought about the positioning of all this. Really, yeah, that's cool to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was uncomfortable with it just for myself personally, just like the idea of it. I was worried that was just going to be a turnoff, in my pitches. And maybe I was wrong back then, but I still think that I was right because a lot has changed in these last 25 years. And the cool thing now is that, people are reimagining, to use the word again, what that means. And, having the ability to talk about love and peace and truth, is something that I see more and more people's eyes are kind of lighting up. People want to be involved in positive solutions. They want to be involved as change agents in our society and our culture, internally within their own companies. Yes. And then within their communities. And most importantly, I guess, seeing how kids' eyes light up when you talk about peace, like this is something that adults actually talk about, that's pretty special. I mean, sadly, it doesn't happen enough. So having the Lennon Bus come to your school, to your community, offers the opportunity, and it's inspiring for the whole community, for the students, for the teachers, for the administration. And, now, kids see and hear about it, and they don't even know what hippies are. They have no idea what that association even is. So I barely would even, mention it. It seems just like an ancient artifact.
Right.
And, you know, and it connects to a lot of really very relevant social issues that are on kids' minds, regardless of where you may fall, on the political spectrum, because that's not something that we even get into at all.
Right.
Particularly, it's really something that's in kids' lives on a day-to-day basis. So talking about peace, for themselves, in their families, in their communities, and bringing that out, to a global level. But it starts as a very personal thing. And
well, the magic of this, though, underneath it, to me, is not the political thing, not all that stuff. What it really is bringing out creativity for the purpose of giving expression to people and imagining those possibilities that connects to broader peace and social movements and all those things. There's something really special about this, Brian, and I don't see anyone out there doing it. I don't see it, and I think there's a lot of companies that are out there that are thinking, hey, how can we get part of these kind of broader movements, but they don't know how. And it seems to me like Lennon Bus and the Songwriting Contest is a great way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, that's been what it's shown me. Like, it's really revealed itself to me, and seeing the appetite that so many people have for this. There's a thirst for it.
Yeah.
That's really kind of, I think, brought us to this point, and our newly founded relationship with Triple G, and wanting to, look for the next generation of partners. We're keeping a lot of the existing partners like Apple and OWC and Audio-Technica and Gibson and others. But, as technology has evolved, as business strategies have evolved, the Lennon buses have evolved as well. And, while we've taken a break with a few exceptions over COVID, the excitement really now is, how can we take the legacy of it, the history of the bus, and continue to evolve? Because that's always been the trajectory of it, right? The first bus was about
Absolutely.
audio, then we added video in, HD video, and we started, doing projects that were, around coding and other topics, and realizing that the Lennon Bus is, really a great tool for any topic or any subject, right? It could be in social studies, it could be in science, it could be in language arts. It really has been shown to be applicable to almost any, field of study, and getting kids engaged and being able to share their ideas and thoughts, their upsets, their angers. Like Riz has said, Riz is, from Wu-Tang Clan, has been, a big supporter over the years. You want to be angry, you want to express your anger, like pick up a guitar, get in a studio, and today, obviously it's evolved tremendously. Like the ability for young people to create things on their own has just, become, just, it's ubiquitous. It's part of the culture now. So
Right.
Showing and working with young people to show them how they can, take advantage of that in better and better ways is what the mission is grown to.
I love it. So if I'm somebody who's out there and I'm in tech and I'm a CEO and I'm wondering how to become part of this, Brian, what's the best way to get involved in Lennon Bus and the Songwriting Contest and everything else that you've mentioned?
On the business side of it,
Sure.
yeah, they can reach out to Gregg Stein. They can reach out to Brian Rothschild,
Awesome.
Directly to talk about the ways in which their company and their initiatives can dovetail with the bus, because it's not really just one size fits all, right?
Right.
The cool thing about the bus for most all of our companies is that they are attracted to it because it dovetails with what their interests are, and what their products are, what their solutions are, and we're always looking for the best and the brightest solutions and tools to build into the bus. And also, in other cases, it may be about an initiative, an idea, a way of, bringing people together. But yeah, the best partners are those that really want to become a part of it. And especially, on the tech side, it's meant to be a showpiece and a showcase for the latest and greatest. So, we work closely together to find just the right way to, to build them in and to have them become a a part of the Lennon Bus family and become a part of the Lennon Bus solution.
So Brian, let's talk about the songwriting contest a little bit more, and the role that plays in education and up and coming talent.
The songwriting contest has really evolved over the years. Like I mentioned earlier, I mean, we've had a tremendous amount of support from our corporate sponsors. Gibson, OWC, Audio Technica, Universal Audio, SSL, some of the best companies in the world in audio. And we wanted to put a prize package together that was going to be of real value to songwriters. I mean, it's open to songwriters of all ages. As a practical matter, and in recent years, it's really skewed younger and younger and younger.
Interesting. When you say younger, what do you mean? Like how old?
I mean, one of our youngest winners recently was like 11, 12 years old.
Amazing. Awesome.
That's pretty unique. But on the other hand, we did just find a 17-year-old girl who's a singer-songwriter whose name is Sade Frame. We ran a love song contest just this past February, which is something we've done for a while. The contest is annual. I should probably back up. The contest is annual, right? So it's open every day of the year. There are 2 sessions, session 1 and session 2. We're in session 2 right now. And there are 12 grand prize winners and 36 finalists in each session. And there's 2 deadlines. One is June 15th and one is December 31st. But, originally there was only one deadline. And the contest was annual, and there was only one deadline. But everyone's attention span is much shorter, and because of technology and everything, we realized we wanted to provide more opportunities in a shorter period of time. So we began running specialty contests like the Love Song Contest, which I think started maybe 7, 8, maybe even longer now. But I think our first winner in the Love Song Contest was Meghan Trainor, who was unknown at that time. She's now, of course, a big pop star and very, very successful songwriter. She won that first Love Song Contest. So we started toying around with specialty contests, to get more opportunity, holiday contests. And then when the pandemic hit and everybody was stuck at home, this was really a big pivot point for the contest. So in 2020, when that happened, very, very quickly, I rallied our partners because the bus came off the road. We couldn't go to schools.
Yeah, that must have been tough too. That must have been tough for everybody,
Very tough. And just like for everybody whose businesses and whose programs and projects were disrupted, it was really hard. I was fortunate to be able to focus in on the contest, and maybe in some ways that I hadn't been able to, because I've just been so jazzed on the bus, and the bus has been so important. The contest costs $30 to enter each song, and the proceeds from those entry fees have been going to help support the Lennon buses. So that's kind of how we melded them. And if I didn't say it already, the Lennon bus also, after the first couple of years, back in 98, 99, spun off as its own thing, finally called it the John Lennon Educational Tour Bus, and it became a nonprofit. It's a 501c3 at this point. But anyway, when the pandemic started, we began running these weekly contests that we called Stuck at Home, and they caught on like immediately because they really were addressing a need. Everybody was stuck at home. We all know that there was an uptick in and desire for music equipment, audio equipment, all kinds of gear, because people were at home and they realized that they, wanted to connect to music. And so, we didn't know that was going to happen or not, but we just knew that if we started running weekly contests with a deadline every Sunday at midnight Pacific time, that we started, getting a lot of people wanting to enter. For lack of anything else to do. And so we went back to our sponsors and asked if they would help support the project with that as well. So we started giving away scoogs and switches and all kinds of gear, microphones and headphones and Genelec studio monitors, guitars, like all the really cool stuff that's part of the regular contest and that we feature on the Lennon buses as well. And it was during that period that it began to skew younger and younger and younger. So anyway, back to the story about this year's Lennon Love Song Contest.
Yeah.
We found this young woman, a 17-year-old girl, who wrote a song called "Dating Isn't Fun." She won the Love Song Contest, and then really for the first time in the history of the contest, she got signed to DOS Communications Management, and she's now managed by them. And so, we put her together with songwriters that have had big hit songs like Toby Gad, who's worked with Beyonce and Fergie, and lots of top 10 hits, and Rock Mafia, and 3 or 4 other very successful writers in LA. So that started to happen at the same time as we were running these stuck at home contests. So that's a little bit of that. I think I might be getting off the road a little bit, but I did want everybody to understand where the contest fit into this, and the opportunities that the contest can offer to songwriters. And so we get entries from around the world. This past year we got something close to 20,000 entries in the songwriting contest. There are 12 categories: rock and pop and jazz and hip hop and country. And all of that is fed out through JLSC.com, John Lennon Songwriting Contest. So that was, again, the initial relationship to the John Lennon name and Yoko's support. And it's really grown into part of the ecosystem of the bus, because it does help to support the Lennon buses.
So let me just bring it back to you for a second, Brian. You went through the ringer with COVID, like many people, and the course changed on you, and a lot of people are still struggling and hurting out there. But there's something special about you that no matter what it is, you talked about it earlier in your career, you talked about it with COVID, you talked about it with other challenges. When you face a challenge, you seem to somehow pivot and work your way through it. Tell us about your kind of philosophy of, there's a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this, your philosophy of your approach to melding creativity and business.
I think it's this: if you're having fun, you're making money. Somebody taught me that a long time ago, and it's kind of silly, but for me anyway, it was kind of true. Like I like to have fun. I like to inspire fun with other people. And if I stick with that, then it seems to work out. That doesn't mean I didn't have my down days, because again, I've been working on these buses for years, and with the exception of around the holidays, they're pretty much out there nonstop doing the good work. If it was not at a school, it was out on tour with a big artist, and we were bringing students to the venues and showing them career paths in the industry that kids never, get exposed to. Like they frequently just know the star that's on stage. They don't realize that there's dozens and dozens and dozens of people that have, pretty decent paying jobs that, make them happy, that are involved in fields that make them happy. So my approach has, when successful, has been to try to have as much fun, to share that fun with other people. But, also, the old, you got to get a lot of no's to get a yes. So, I guess I've been, in some ways, I've been realistic. In other ways, I didn't want to be too realistic. Like I had a dream for what the bus could be and what the buses can be, going ahead, and you have to just keep going after it. At this point, for me, there's a mission, and the mission, especially now that I feel like we're getting back on track. The mission is what really drives me. The kids deserve it.
Yeah.
And that really fuels me. And I want to share that with people who are in positions of power, in positions of leadership, and try to keep growing it. Before COVID, we were working on a Lennon Bus for Australia.
Wow.
I've gotten pretty far down the road with that. We got the Parliament in Australia excited about it.
Wow.
They brought me over there, and it was really a labor of love for some of the senators that originally had found out about the bus. There's one of the most famous music promoters in Australia, Michael Glenn, Chuggy as he's known, became really impassioned about it, and he's really famous over there. Went over and they took me up to some of the most remote parts of Australia, to the Aboriginal communities, where those young people have been completely disenfranchised. And I met with Aboriginal leaders, and they began to put together, with Parliament's help, budget and the means to build a new Lennon Bus for Australia. So we're trying to kind of reopen that project as well. There were funds that were put aside by the Parliament for the building of this new bus, and we've begun to work with Apple and some of our other partners on, bringing that to life. But I would say, having a mission that you believe in, whatever that is the key to keeping it going, right? Because if it's just about making it through, then I think it's easy to get weary. And if it's just about the metrics, then eventually your well is gonna go dry. So anyway, that's a little bit of it for me.
No, I mean, there's so much, goodness that you have around the work that you're doing, and the mission is so clear and so powerful and so moving, quite frankly. I mean, to get a next generation of kids excited about music, to extend the joy of music creation and play and fun. And I mean, there's just so much good stuff here, Brian. I love it. I love talking to you. I love hanging with you, but I have one more question for you.
Yes.
What is next for the Lennon Bus and the songwriting contest? Where do you go from here?
Well, I mean, a big thing that I'm focused on now is our new relationship with Triple G Ventures, and the opportunity to share the projects with more companies. Getting the right kind of help to scale it, to get even bigger. I really was very inexperienced when I started it, as far as how to deliver value to companies, right? Because the companies that get involved in this, they believe in the mission.
Right.
They love the idea of it, but they're also in business, and they want to know that their investment is going to have a return. And so I did have to learn how to make that viable. I did have to learn how to provide reports. I had to learn how to demonstrate and showcase the effectiveness of what we were doing, and how to be able to take this incredible vehicle that we have and turn it into a machine that could work on behalf of our partners. So but I'm looking forward to having your help, having everybody on Triple G's Triple G side of things, help in getting even more sophisticated with how we can do that. Because I guess I've had a great team around me, for all these years, on many levels. But I've also, it's also been squarely on my shoulders, right? I've had to do a lot of it myself, and I do want to, without getting too much, and I want to make sure that the buses survive after I'm gone, and after Yoko's gone. Sean's getting more involved at this point now as well. So I'm looking to to kind of let go in some ways, and open myself up to new opportunities, new ways of looking at it, so that it can be the most successful John Lennon educational tour bus that we've ever had.
Well, I can't begin to tell you how humbled we are at Triple G to just even have this time to talk to you, let alone actually work with you on collaborating and bringing in more partners and more people to be part of this absolutely beautiful mission. It's something that's very, very close to my heart. And just absolutely amazed and honored to be part of it, and excited for what's to come. So let's do this. Let's tell everybody where they can learn a little bit more about the bus if they're listening and they made it this far in the podcast and they want to know, where can I learn more? Where can I sign up? Where can I get involved? Where do I go, Brian?
Yeah. I mean, they can, our socials are certainly important. We're on Lennon Bus, Instagram, Facebook, on our Twitter, our website, which we're going to update shortly, lennonbus.org. You can see a lot of the content there. Obviously, all of our projects, and, if I haven't said it, the bread and butter of the bus has been content production, right? So every day that we're working with students or big artists, we're creating original music, original video content, and that's been all, that's all fed out on our Lennon Bus YouTube channel. So you can see all kinds of, unique content that's there. And typically most of the projects are single day projects. We've done all sorts of things, but some of the magic and mystery of it is that, students come on, and by the time they leave at the end of a single day, we've collected all of the assets for an original song and an original video piece. Wow. And there are many different, sort of iterations of how we've done that. We've gone deep and done, projects that are focusing on social justice and gun violence. We've teamed up and partnered with the city of New York and Los Angeles and Miami and lots of municipalities and all kinds of organizations like NAM and the NAM Foundation. To look at, different issues that are of relevance and importance to students and communities, and develop documentary projects around a lot of these topics. So it just continues to grow and snowball and into different versions of what the Lennon Bus can be. So I'm hoping that it can continue for a long time. And as technology and business progresses, so will the Lennon Buses.
Absolutely awesome. Brian Rothschild, you are an amazing guy. I can't believe I had an opportunity to share this conversation with you and everyone else that's listening. Thanks for being part of this. Thanks for working with us, and just couldn't be more excited about what's to come. For anybody that's listening, thank you for joining us. And please like, share, subscribe, all that good social media stuff that everybody does. We'd love to spread the word about the John Lennon Educational Tour Bus.
John Lennon Educational Tour Bus. Anybody wants to get involved, come help me drive this thing, okay?
There you go. There you go. Brian, thanks so much. For anybody else that's listening, peace.
Exactly it. Imagine peace.